If you think High School Musical isn't political, then you are simply not paying attention. Hello everyone, welcome back to heyitsris Pod, where I discuss anything from pop culture that I love and adore, whether it be mainstream to extremely niche. Today, we are discussing something extremely mainstream, especially if you were a child of the 2000s and watched Disney Channel, High School Musical. We are not just going over the movie of High School Musical, but we are going to talk about the greater lesson within the movie itself. Sticking to the status quo. Don't fucking do it. Don't even think about sticking to the status quo. But first, let's establish what the status quo is. The lyrics of Stick to the Status Quo really lay this out for us. It is better by far to keep things as they are. Don't mess with the flow. No. Stick to the status quo. Now, I want everyone to keep this in mind as we are talking about the movie. Why would people want to uphold the status quo? If the status quo isn't upheld, it can threaten someone's position of power. And if people can't face their own discomfort, they force people to fall in line with the status quo. These are the two reasons that people uphold the status quo. And the even broader picture we're going to be looking at today specifically is how the status quo upholds the systems of patriarchy and white supremacy. Now, we are just looking at the first movie, but I will say I'm going through the other movies right now. Just watched High School Musical 2. We can't even get into it today, but fucking phenomenal. I feel like so many other realizations have been made, connections are being made, realizations are being had, and there's so much to say about it. But particularly we are talking about the first movie today. So if it's been a while, let's take a quick look at the Google summary of what High School Musical is, because the way they worded it was really funny to me. Troy Bolton, the star athlete at a small town high school. Does East High look like a small town to you by any... Y'all seen how big East High is? What do you mean small town high school? Falls for nerdy beauty Gabriela Montez. You can be nerdy and beautiful, who would have thought? At a holiday karaoke party. When they returned to campus, Troy and Gabriella auditioned for the upcoming school musical. Meanwhile, the jealous Sharpay Evans conspires to squelch their chances. Really adored that word choice. Squelch. Put that in your vocab. I need to be hearing more of that. The two must struggle to make it to auditions whilst also meeting their existing obligations to the basketball team in the academic decathlon. So, as I'm sure we all remember, Gabriella and Troy sang the start of something new, and it was in fact the start of something new. And I want us to know some of the lyrics of Starting Something New. I know that something has changed, never felt this way, but right here tonight, it could be the start of something new. Living in my own world, didn't understand that anything can happen when you take a chance. I never believed in what I couldn't see. I never opened my heart to all the possibilities. Are you listening to the song? It is laying the groundwork for us, for the story. So Troy is back from winter break and he notices Gabriella just moved to this school. So he checks in with Gabriella to see how everything's going, and Gabriella immediately clocks that New Year's Troy is not something his friends are aware of. Troy says, well, my friends know about the snowboarding. I haven't quite told them about the singing thing. Too much for them to handle? No, it was cool, but you know my friends, it's not what I do. That was like a different person. Interesting, I want everyone to note that, right? So this is a new side of Troy. He may have just discovered at Gabriella the start of something new, if you will. So this is our first little inkling that Troy is embarrassed to tell his friends, right? He might not be making the connections on why, but he knows that they might not be all that accepting. So Troy and Gabriella are looking at the bulletin board. Troy points out the musical signups. Gabriella says she's not really getting into anything. Sharpay, boom, pops in. She's kind of noting, like, hey, they're looking at the musical auditions. A seed is being planted in her head, a delusional seed, if you will, but a seed nonetheless. Sharpay says, my brother and I have starred in all the school's productions, and we really welcome newcomers. There are a lot of supporting roles in the show. I'm sure we could find something for you. Notice the tune in the way she said it, and I tried to deliver it the best I could. In this scene, Sharpay, we need to know, is the only one to sign the audition board for the lead. So I want everyone to note that in big letters across the entire lined paper, Sharpay Evans. Put that in your memory bank. We're coming back to that. So Troy, he really discovered maybe he likes singing. He doesn't really know quite what to do about it. So in this next scene, we see Troy throw a line to get an idea of what his friends are thinking. So dude, you know that musical thing? Is it true you get extra credit just for auditioning? Chad says, who cares? It's always good to get extra credit for college. You ever think LeBron James or Shaquille O'Neal auditioned for their musical? Maybe. God forbid a basketball player audition for a musical. Chad, I can't. Not enough people know that Troy Bolton is going to be the next Shaq. That's How I Beat Shaq by Aaron Carter. Does anyone know that jingle? I won't get into it for your sake. Chad says, look, the music in these shows isn't hip-hop, okay, or rock, or anything essential to culture. It's like show music. It's all costumes and makeup. Oh, dude, it's frightening. Chad, I can't with y'all. I can't with y'all. But this is the first note we need to make when earlier I was noting how we are going to use High School Musical to understand how the status quo works in many ways in patriarchy and white supremacy, right? Under patriarchy, right? Men are only allowed to prescribe to things that are masculine, right? So costumes, makeup, singing, and especially musical theater is a quote-unquote girly thing, right? So this is scary. They're scared. They're scared of showbiz. That's crazy. Troy says, I just thought it might be a good laugh, you know? Sharpay's kind of cute too. So is a mountain lion, but you don't pet it. Chad with these fucking lines. I can't. So is a mountain lion, but you don't pet it. I'm just going to let everyone sit with that for a moment. This is all important dialogue to note just because it's going to give us an idea, a premise of what we're working off of here. What are these patriarchal ideas of what being a man looks like to these boys? Because it's going to affect how they act. But it is just really funny that men would rather be in a saw trap than even think about wearing makeup. It's just like, y'all, relax. Next, we are brought into Get Your Head in the Game, and we know that Troy is actually seriously considering this audition. My head's in the game, but my heart's in the song. We also see Troy later on peep the bulletin board again, this time by himself. And this time, Ryan catches him and is suspicious, and he brings this to Sharpay. And Sharpay says, you know, he was hanging around with that new girl, and they were both looking at the list. There's something freaky about her. Where did she say she was from? I can't. There's something freaky about her. Can't emphasize enough how freaky Gabriella doesn't look. It doesn't seem at all. Like, she's literally quiet. Sharpay is calling her freaky because she was looking at the bulletin board. I need you all to, like, think back to, like, Gabriella Montez. Shy, to herself, first day at a new school, wearing her little cardigan. Freaky? What was freaky about that? Nope, but Sharpay's threatened. And I want everyone to notice this. This is a second instance we're seeing Sharpay is actually really threatened by this, which is insane. Once again, she's planting the delusional seeds for herself. So Sharpay and Ryan get some click-clacking, and they look up Gabriella and find an article about her from her old school. Wow, an Einsteinette. So why do you think she's interested in our musical? Sharpay says, I'm not sure that she is, and we needn't concern ourselves with amateurs. But there is no harm in making certain that Gabriella is welcome to school activities that are, well, appropriate for her. After all, she loves pie. What you need to know about Gabriella is she is a math whiz. She loves pie. That was a funny line. Once again, though, delusional girls telling each other yes. This is what's happening with Sharpay. And y'all, like, Sharpay has been the it girl, okay? She has started all the musicals with Ryan, but a new person comes into town and all of a sudden, someone glances at her fucking billboard for the auditions, and Sharpay is about to crash out eventually. Like, it's actually insane if you think about it. So Sharpay prints the articles from Gabriella's old school and puts it in Taylor's locker. Taylor is the head of the Scholastic Decathlon team at East High, and she knows that if Taylor knows how smart Gabriella is, she will probably ask Gabriella to be on the decathlon team, and then we can keep Gabriella distracted. She won't even, if she was thinking about the musical, she's definitely not going to be now because she's going to be busy. Sharpay is threatened by Gabriella. She is assuming that Gabriella could dethrone her at the musical. Keep in mind, Gabriella, wasn't even doing any, God forbid you look at a fucking bulletin. It's actually fucking insane. But she, at the end of the day, is going to make sure Gabriella stays in her lane, keep the status quo. So we flash to Troy practicing b-ball, shooting some hoops at home, okay? He has a basketball hoop. Not a hoop, and we need to fucking clarify. A basketball court in his backyard. Troy's house is fucking huge. I couldn't even imagine being in that tax bracket. And we can only note this for when they mention later on about, thinking about your future, getting scholarships. And it's like, where are y'all getting this money? Like, Troy's dad is the coach at a high school. Like, there's no way East High is paying that much. What? Maybe the mom makes the bread. I don't know. But he's got a fucking basketball court in his backyard. He's practicing with his dad. Troy is kind of shooting a line to his dad here. And there's a lot of things in this next dialogue that we should really note because it's going to come back later. Troy says, "Did you ever think about trying something new, but were afraid what your friends might think? I mean, what if you want to try something really new and it's a total disaster and all your friends laugh at you?" Then his dad says, "Well, then maybe they're not really your friends. Okay, let's note this. Put this in our pocket to open it later, okay?" The scene would have been great if it ended here, but it really gets into Coach talking about how Troy is the leader. And the dad really wasn't clocking what Troy was talking about here. But what I want to establish that he says here is that he's the leader. We gotta be thinking about these scholarships, gotta be thinking about college scouts. Know what a scholarship is worth these days? Once again, college is insanely expensive. So you can have a big house and not afford college. But I just go like, really? Like, y'all got a b-ball court in your backyard, y'all. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not thinking about you. It's like, you don't have any money for Troy to go to school? Like, I don't know. Maybe they put it all in the house. Could be it. But the house is humongous. Humongous, y'all. Can't emphasize this enough. So it's going to be free period. So Chad asks, let's go to the gym. Troy says he has homework. Chad says, "I've been behind on homework since preschool." So Troy, we're seeing, okay, normally he would go to the gym with Chad, but he said no. So Chad's like, why the hell would Troy say no? Like, I don't believe you're working on homework. I don't believe that. So Troy is running all around the school trying to dodge Chad. Where was Troy going? Oh, wait, he was going to the musical auditions. Everybody, he was going to the musical auditions, and I need everyone to note this. Troy was sneaking around to the musical audition, and he was watching from behind a mom. Now, what we established in these auditions is that Sharpay is the it girl, okay? She has been in 17 school productions. Once again, we need to remind everyone, no one was signing up on the audition sheets for the lead. She was the only one. This is where her and Ryan performed. So Troy was watching the auditions from behind a mom, and eventually Gabriella peeks in and is like, "What you doing here, Troy?" And now they're both watching from the back of the auditorium. And eventually Miss Darbus says auditions are over. Gabriella says, "I'd like to audition, Miss Darbus." And Troy's like, "Oh shit, what did she just get me into?" And so he says, "I'll audition with her," because couples auditions already ended, right? Miss Darbus says, "You miss your chance. There's nothing we can do." We see Chelsea drop her music, and Troy and Gabriella go on stage to help her pick it up. And this is where we get this dialogue. Troy says, "Why are you so afraid of Ryan and Sharpay? I mean, it's your show." Kelsey says, "It is? Isn't the composer of the show kind of like the playmaker in basketball? Playmaker? You know, the one that makes everyone else look good. I mean, without you there is no show. You're the playmaker, Kelsey." This is actually an incredible moment because we have yet to get to the status quo moment. But when we are talking about sticking to the status quo, it is better by far to keep things as you are. Don't mess with the flow. No, stick to the status quo. Just in case y'all fucking forgot about that. When you stick to the status quo, and we will get there, we are not just sticking within the boxes of what we can do. Troy is the basketball guy, and he's going to get into singing, the musical specifically, right? We are also isolating ourselves from other groups, right? Other groups may not intermingle. So here, Troy is actually giving a really incredible example of how we're all in this together. So we can make the connections on how we do relate, despite the fact we're in two different fields. Kelsey asks if they want to hear how the duet is supposed to sound. They sing. Miss Darbus pops in and says, "Bolton, Montez, you've got a callback." Then we fast forward to where the real drama starts. The callback sheet is posted. Sharpay is now crashing out because, wait a second, I was supposed to be the only contender, but I'm seeing these other people on the sheet, right? And especially, they didn't show up to auditions, did they? Not really. Not only does Sharpay see it, Chad and the team sees it. Sees it? They seize it. They seize it. And the next scene after this is the cafeteria scene where we get stick to the status quo. It is better by far to keep things as they are. Don't mess with the flow. No. Stick to the motherfucking status quo. Or so they say. Everyone begins confessing. Zeke likes to bake. Martha likes to pop and lock. Skater Boy likes to play the cello. And everyone in their groups is telling them, fall back in line. Stick to the status quo. You can't challenge what we know. That makes us uncomfortable. Everyone has their place. You have yours. Stick to the status quo. We stick to what we know. We don't explore anything outside of that. God forbid we let Martha pop and lock. God fucking forbid. A woman can't even pop and lock these days. Zeke likes to bake. I don't know if anyone's watched Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. That's a story for another day. But Eddie knows Zeke's pain on this, I'll tell you that. So far in this song, we are seeing the effects of patriarchy. There are other things thrown in there as well, but specifically when I'm speaking about the guys, right? The patriarchy, men force other men to fall in line, stick to the status quo. Not only can you not do something outside of the status quo, especially if it doesn't fit into the patriarchal view of what masculinity may be, right? Like Zeke likes to bake. As I've said, Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. Another great example, High School Musical's older sister, by the way. High School Musical's older sister, Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off, put some respect on his name. We can't let Troy sing. We can't let Zeke bake. We can't let Skater Boy be serious and play the cello. No. We couldn't have that. Oh my god, you're ruining everything. Stick to the fucking status quo. Don't even think about sticking to the status quo is part of the lesson you're going to learn here today, folks. Don't even think about sticking to the status quo. Don't even fucking think about it. Great song, don't stick to the status quo though. Specifically when we get to Sharpay's verse, this is not what I want, this is not what I planned, and I just gotta say, I do not understand. Something is really, really wrong, and we gotta get things back to where they belong. Stick to the status quo. Because for Sharpay, right, and this is our, like I linked, the patriarchy and them having an adverse reaction to what the men wanted to do, right? This is part of white supremacy. Sharpay has been benefiting from the status quo. She's been able to hold the lead for so long, and this is the first time she's challenged, right? So she doesn't like that. We got to put everyone back in their place, because people shouldn't even think that they can have my rightful spot. That's the vibes that she's given. And especially, this started out as a delusion for Sharpay, right? Where it's still a delusion, don't get me wrong. But at first it was just like, maybe they're going to threaten my spot and I don't like that. Now it's like confirmed that they threaten her spot. Now they are not taking it that seriously in the same way that Sharpay is, but they threaten her spot nonetheless. So next, Gabriella spills her nachos on Sharpay. And what we are going to see Sharpay do, I want us to note how she is abusing her power. So Sharpay is talking to Miss Darbus, who came over to see what was going on. And Sharpay says, look at this. That Gabriella girl just dumped her lunch on me. On purpose. It's all part of their plan to ruin our musical. And Troy and his basketball robots are obviously behind it. Why do you think he auditioned? After all the hard work you put into the show, it just doesn't seem right. Sharpay has had a position of power in the theater, right? And Miss Darbus, she is the head theater girly queen, but Sharpay is trying to manipulate Miss Darbus into not taking Troy and Gabriella seriously. This is a joke to them. They're not taking this seriously. You don't want to risk the work that you put into this show. Meanwhile, Sharpay doesn't give a shit about any of that. She may think they are ill-intentioned even though they're not, but most of all, this isn't about protecting Miss Darbus and the sanctity of her show. This is about protecting Sharpay's place and her role. Very manipulative moment from Sharpay, and this is not the last time you're going to see something like this from her. Troy and Gabriella are just existing. God forbid they want to do fucking something new. Hey, did you guys know that you can try something new at any time? And you can also like multiple things. You can switch up any time. High school is the one place that we can try something, right? We can explore ourselves in the way that this happens throughout your entire life, right? But I'm just talking about the responsibility that we have and the things that bog us down from happening. And this can also happen in high school too, so I don't want to say it's only exclusive to getting older, right? But we have more responsibility. You know, in high school, we can try on as many different hats as we like. We can dip our toe. We can join as many clubs as we want to see, okay, I'm sort of interested in this. Let me step my foot in here and see if I like it or not, right? And you can make that decision. And you can try something new. And it doesn't need to be sign on the blood contract. Serious. We have this privilege because we're not paying bills, we're not writing essays, going to college, having kids, etc. to try on these different hats and see, hey, maybe I also would want to explore this. Whether it be you decide this is something you're really passionate about along with basketball, or maybe you like one more than the other, or even if you just enjoy it as a hobby, because you're allowed to do that too. You're allowed just to enjoy something. It doesn't always have to be productive. But there's this privilege and opportunity that we don't have when we get older, in the way that, you know, I'm sure when you get older, it probably gets harder to find amateur theater, right? That you're not working with people who are young, right? And the older you get too, like no matter, you can try something new at any age of your life. You can decide to change your life at any point. It doesn't matter if you have 50 years left to live or 5 days left to live. You can do that at any time. The point is that you're trying to be authentic to yourself, do something new, try something new that you enjoy. You know, when we get older, we have all these responsibilities that we don't always have the privilege to explore that in the way, because when we get older, you know, people are also have been locked in a way that maybe we haven't been if we're trying something new, right? So it can feel intimidating to try something new, especially when there's so many people who know so much more than you, right? And are probably better than you, because sometimes these are a lot of skills that we have to build. And don't let that discourage you from doing it. Like, you can do it at any time, right? And Sharpay wants people to think that this is not, you shouldn't even be going for the lead. Like, you should start off at the bottom. And it's not a crime to audition for a musical against someone who is more knowledgeable about theater than you. It's not a crime. It's also, let me emphasize that this is High School Musical, right? This is high school. This is high school, okay? Not Broadway. Not Broadway, okay? Give my regards to Broadway, but this is not it. So we fast forward to Chad pulling Troy and going, "What's up? Let me see. You missed free period workout yesterday to audition for some heinous musical, and now suddenly people are confessing." Chad fucking-lax. God forbid Zeke bakes. Zeke is baking creme brulee. Troy is like genuinely interested in what creme brulee is. And Zeke starts explaining it, and Chad goes, "Shut up, Zeke." Oh my god, Chad. Relax. We can't enjoy a baked fucking good. This is what I'm saying. Men are doing this to themselves. They're forcing Troy to conform to patriarchy, right? Like, you can't sing. You have to stick to the status quo. And we can't even be nice about, like I said earlier, you know, I thought we liked eating food. I thought we could all agree we liked eating food. But God forbid Zeke wants to bake you a creme brulee. And you can't even deal with that. I don't even know what a creme brulee is, to be honest, and I'm not going to look it up. It's almost like one of those things I don't need to know. I'm probably never going to try one. That's something I don't need to know. That and like, where's Kyle XY's belly button? You know what I mean? I don't need to know that information. Maybe you could tell me on my deathbed. I mean, if I had to choose, I'd rather know about Kyle XY's belly button more than what a creme brulee is. Like, but also, if it's not that interesting, I don't want to know. I don't want to go out knowing, like, if it's boring. You know what I mean? It's like all this, like, work up to, like, ooh, what's the reason Kyle XY doesn't have a belly button? What's a creme brulee? And then you tell me, and it's like, oh, I actually don't care. Or wasn't that interesting? Maybe let's solve, like, a murder case, and you could tell me who did it before I die. Okay, all that being said, that's literally none of that was important. Back to what we were fucking talking about. Chad says, "You see what's happening here, man? Our team is coming apart because of your singing thing." Relax. Even the drama geeks and the brainiacs suddenly think they can talk to us. See what I said earlier? They just want to stick to who they know, stick into your place, don't associate with anyone else. God forbid the jocks talk to other people. Which is also insane to know, because when talking about that moment earlier with Kelsey, where Troy was making the connections between basketball and, you know, musical theater and Kelsey's part as the playmaker, right? In so many, especially early 2000s movies, right? We see the jocks be fucking rude to people like Kelsey, right? But Troy is just kind. That's just who he is. He's a kind guy. He's not going to do that shit like Chad right here saying, "Oh, God forbid these geeks try to talk to us. I can't believe it." Look at the skater dudes mingling. They're talking to Zeke. Suddenly people think that they can do other stuff. Stuff that's not their stuff. They've got you thinking about show tunes when we've got a playoff game next week. Oh my God, Chad, please. It's not that serious, but it actually is that serious, but not in the way Chad thinks it is. In the way that it's like, y'all need to learn to have fucking fun. You are being so rude to your friend right now, and y'all don't need to hold yourselves back from the joy you could feel by interacting with other people, by trying new things, okay? They're doing this to themselves. They are. And it's important we take a sidestep here to acknowledge what are the reasons that keeping to your groups and not discussing with people outside of your groups would be upholding the status quo. And how does breaking the status quo in this instance, right, which we'll see later on with we're all in this together, how does breaking the status quo threaten the patriarchy or white supremacy? Because if we can get people to come together, Zeke is talking with the other people about his baking. Even, like I said, Kelsey and Troy speaking about the connections between basketball and Kelsey's part in the theater, right? If we can make the connections about, we may be different, but we do have our similarities and we do all have common things that we can relate on, right? That's so powerful. And we'll see that later with We're All in This Together, as I mentioned. We are all people at the end of the day. And when we come together to work towards a common goal, that threatens people in their place and systems of oppression. Okay? Systems of oppression benefit from intimidating you to stay in line and also you keeping other people in line, right? You're being the cop, kill the cop within you, I've always said. You're doing this by bullying other people to stay in line. You're not trying new things. You're separated from your peers that you could be joining up with. And because of all that, if we're keeping you where you are not going to challenge the status quo and you're not going to threaten our spot, our power that this person may have, like Sharpay. These are tools of patriarchy and white supremacy. We need to keep this in mind as we are going through the rest of the story. So Taylor and Gabriella are chatting, and Taylor says no one has beaten Sharpay out for the musical since kindergarten. I'm telling you, if that girl could figure out a way to play both Romeo and Juliet, her own brother would be ace out of a job. Now, this is something we have to note in this movie, right? And it's just a note right now, and we see this play out later on in the franchise. But proximity to power, Sharpay, kind of sidekick is Ryan, right? Does not keep you safe. And Ryan starts to realize this throughout the movies. And I just watched High School Musical 2, where Sharpay kicks Ryan out of their talent show because she wants Troy to sing with her. So bear this in mind. Proximity to power does not keep you safe. And to side note, off of this side note, like I said, this is something in the bigger conversation of all of High School Musical, not particularly this first one, is that if we keep people thinking that they have a proximity to power, right, that you can benefit from aligning yourself with me, right, we keep people upholding the status quo. And it is when we start to realize how, I thought proximity to this power was going to protect me too, only to find out that wasn't the case. And like I said, that's not something we're going to make a connection to in this first movie, but later on, specifically in High School Musical 2, Ryan learns this well. Sharpay, at the end of the day, thinks of herself as a star and Ryan as a sidekick. Ryan may have viewed this as we're a duo, we're a sibling duo, but that wasn't the case. Next, we have Gabriella throwing a very small line to Taylor by saying, do you ever feel like there's this whole other person inside of you just looking for a way to come out? And Taylor says, not really, no. Now, what I want to note about High School Musical is, you will see Gabriella also be bullied by her friends to stay in line, but the way Troy is facing it is a little bit more serious to me in the way that we're upholding patriarchy. And it's not that Gabriella's isn't serious, because trust me, we'll fucking get to the cruelty that she faced, but it's a little bit different. So this was just funny because Taylor was like, no, I've actually never thought about that in my life. Okay, we'll just end the conversation there. That's why that was funny to me. But it should all be duly noted at the end of the day. Then we get to one of the most beautiful scenes in High School Musical. I will always be hand-hearting for Troy and Gabriella. I will always be hand-hearting for Troy and Gabriella, okay? Don't you fucking forget that. Troy has invited Gabriella out to his special spot, and Gabriella says, you pretty much have the school wired. Seems to me like everyone on campus wants to be your friend. Troy says, unless we lose. I'm sure it's tricky being the coach's son. Makes me practice a little harder, I guess. My parents' friends are always saying, your son's the basketball guy. You must be so proud. Sometimes I don't want to be a basketball guy. I want to be a guy, God forbid he wants to be just a guy. I'm just a guy with a dream, got the best of me. Now that's Hannah Montana, and it's called Just a Girl. I don't know if that's relevant to this, but that's what I was thinking. God forbid Troy just wants to be just a guy. Just want to do it. Just a guy. I'm just a guy, not a basketball guy. I'm just a guy. Anyway, Gabriella says, I saw the way you treated Kelsey at the audition yesterday. Do your friends know that guy? See what I said? Troy was just nice, and he should be. But like I said, the early 2000s movie, the jocks were always being mean to the nerds. Troy says, to them, I'm the playmaker, dude. They don't know enough about you, Troy. At my other schools, I was the freaky math girl. What's freaky about a math girl? It's cool coming here and being anyone I want to be. When I was singing with you, I just felt like a girl. Troy says, You even looked like one too. So this is the really important part that I want to talk about. This is where I said, I will always hand heart for Troy and Gabriella, and don't you fucking forget it. Remember in kindergarten how you'd meet a kid and know nothing about them? Then 10 seconds later, you play like you were best friends because you didn't have to be anything but yourself? Singing with you felt like that. That was actually the most fucking beautiful thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. That was beautiful, right? Like, they have the courage to sing because they have each other, right? They didn't have to be anyone but themselves. There's no outside expectations they have with each other. They just are who they are. That is fucking beautiful, and that needs to be fucking noted. Okay, because Troy and Gabriella are cuties. This is actually the cutest fucking scene in the entire movie, and not enough people are fucking talking about it. Troy says, I never thought about singing. That's for sure. Till you. So you really want to do the callbacks? Hey, just call me Freaky Callback Boy. You're a cool guy, Troy, but not for the reasons your friends think. And thanks for showing me your top secret hiding place. Like kindergarten. Oh, that was so sweet. That was so sweet. I'm hand-hearting. You can't see me, but I'm hand-hearting. I am. That was fucking beautiful. Next, Gabriella visits Troy as he is late to practice, and his dad basically crashes out. He says, Miss, this is a closed practice. And it gets real fucking awkward. Gabriella leaves. Bolton, the only thing he knows about this is that Troy and Gabriella got detention together, and he thinks this girl is pulling you from what you're doing, right? She must be a bad influence. Dad, detention was my fault, not hers. You haven't missed practice in 3 years. That girl shows up. That girl is named Gabriella. She's very nice. Helping you miss practice doesn't make her very nice. Not in my book or your team's. Oh my god, get that stick out of your ass. Get that basketball out of your ass, Coach Bolton. Get your head in the fucking game, bitch. I'm sorry. That was a lot. And I do apologize, but this scene makes me mad. Dad, she's not a problem. She's just a girl. Let me say that one more time. She's not a problem. She's just a girl. Yeah, let's fucking talk about it. Let's fucking talk about it. Why is the blame always put on the women? The women must be doing this to you. Here's the fucking reality. Troy could have said, hey, I know we're chatting, but I gotta get to practice. Did he know? Honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But the fact that we're blaming a girl, the patriarchy wants you to believe that it's the girl's problem, and that's fucking rude. The worst thing you could be in this world is to be a woman. She's not a problem. She's just a girl. Put that on a bumper sticker. I'm not a problem. I'm just a girl. Why are we always putting the responsibility on the girls? As if boys don't have their own conscience and their own personhood to be able to do, oh, a girl must be controlling you. That's why you're acting differently and all of a sudden not showing up to practice. Oh my, I actually can't. This makes me so fucking mad, but it was crazy that this was the line that was dropped because that was not enough people are going to realize that this is an iconic line. She's not a problem. She's just a girl. I'm literally just a girl. And that's what you need to understand. It's not Gabriella's fault that Troy missed practice. That's on him. You're going to punish Gabriella because of that? That's fucking rude. That's fucking rude. You don't like women. You don't like women, do you? Do you? Now Coach says, but you're not just a guy, Troy. You're a team leader. What you do affects not only this team, but the entire school. And without you completely focused, we're not going to win next week. The championship games, they don't come along all the time. They're something special. Yeah, well, a lot of things are special, Dad. But you're a playmaker, not a singer, right? Did you ever think that I could maybe be both? Guys, it isn't this serious. He's in fucking high school. I think they're like sophomores. Are they sophomores in this? What I want to note here is something that's interesting, and this is actually a recent revelation that I've had. I've been writing a lot on my Substack about High School Musical, and recently I've thought about exploring the idea of loyalty. And loyalty can be defined in many different ways, but I think there is part of the reason why men continue to uphold the patriarchy is because they can't get rid of their loyalty to it. This falsehood, not a real loyalty. And that's, of course, just a small part of the greater picture of how we even begin to uphold these patriarchal beliefs. But I think of it in the realm that Troy, he's a leader. He's allegedly the best one on his team. I don't know if that's really true or he's just, whatever. He's just the leader at the very least. And a common theme you'll notice is like, for the team, right? Are his teammates really being teammates or are they bullying him? It's not just about loyalty to the team in that you made a commitment and you're not doing it. It's about the loyalty to manhood that you're challenging. And by challenging that, it's not only challenging our comfort, right? It's challenging our place. We want to be winners, right? And you're also contributing to that. But I think it's just something to know. It's not a fully fleshed out thought, but I thought that loyalty really also gave me an understanding, like in the same ways, on a much broader scale outside of this movie, that we see why men are so quick to stick up for other men, right? Despite the fact being simultaneously aware, in the ways that when you're a little girl, right? And they say, I know who men think, don't do X, Y, and Z, right? I'm just a girl. Don't put the responsibility on me. Put the responsibility on the men who are perpetrating the harm. But even then, they're still doing that. They know all the problems. They're still trying to get this loyalty from each other, right? And until men break down and rewrite what loyalty actually means, they're going to continue upholding the patriarchy. And that was just a side note. So this next scene is one of the most annoying scenes in the fucking movie. If you want to talk about the ways in which we are making fun of girls, this scene right here, Chad really sums it all up. What spell has this elevated IQ temptress girl cast that suddenly makes you want to be in a musical? This elevated IQ temptress girl. We don't value education, right? Elevated IQ. Temptress girl, right? Like I said, Gabriella is just a girl. She's not a problem. She's just a girl, right? She's not magically seducing Troy. She must have a spell on you, right? She must have a spell on you. I put a spell on you, Troy Bolton, and now you're mine. You as a man and as my friend would have never acted this way. It must be the girl who's doing this to you. Meanwhile, you just need to deconstruct some patriarchy, Chad. Maybe ponder that. Troy says, I just did it. Who cares? Who cares? How about your most loyal best friend? This is what I was saying about the loyalty conversation, right? You're my best friend. You're part of our team. We are owed your loyalty. And what does loyalty actually look like to them? Loyalty includes being supportive, right? Which we are not seeing from Chad. So actually Chad is the one actually not being loyal. They're acting like, whoa, you are doing this and this is challenging me and my discomfort, right? So I have to put you back in the line. You are the one, you're the problem. You have to stick to the status quo. This is why it's so important to, when we're talking about certain words that are thrown around here, right? Like loyalty, it's like, well, if you asked a room of people what loyalty meant to them, how would their answers differ? Because understanding that people's versions of loyalty differs is going to give us greater insight into the problem at hand. Like how I would describe loyalty is going to be different from Chad. Chad says, look, you're a hoops dude, not a musical singer person. Relax. Have you ever seen Michael Crawford on a cereal box? Who's Michael Crawford? Exactly, my point. He was the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. Now my mom, she's seen that musical 27 times, and she put Michael Crawford's picture in our refrigerator. Yeah, not on it, in it. So my point is, if you play basketball, you're going to end up on a cereal box. If you sing in musicals, you're going to end up in my mom's refrigerator. Why would she put his picture in her refrigerator? One of her crazy diet ideas. Look, I don't attempt to understand the female mind, Troy. It's frightening territory. I almost have no words. If you play on the basketball team, you're going to end up on the cereal box. If you sing in musicals, you're going to end up in my mom's refrigerator. This was actually a really fucking lie. I can't even lie. This is fucking hilarious. Because what are you even saying? Whose picture should I put in my refrigerator? Which is insane because I'm never going to put a man's picture in a refrigerator to be like motivation to look good for him. Like, ew! Selena Gomez, good for you. That's immediately what I was thinking when I just want to look good for ya. No. Don't even think about buying into diet culture and put a sexy man in your refrigerator. Okay, a picture of one, just to be clear. Don't put an actual sexy man in your refrigerator either. You should do neither of those things. Don't buy into diet culture. Don't put a picture of a man to motivate you to look better. No. Because we need to decenter men, and we need to deconstruct patriarchy and white supremacy, which actually also have something to do with diet culture, but we're not going to touch on that today. But this is funny. Whose picture would I put in my refrigerator? Okay. Depends what era of life we're talking about. In 2006, that probably would have been a picture of Dylan Sprouse. And I can't get into that any further. You're just going to have to take my word for it. If you really want to look up a poster I used to have in my room, look up Dylan and Cole skateboarding roof. Dylan and Cole skateboarding roof. And then you'll probably see the picture that I had on my wall. It was a poster that I bought and begged my mom to buy me from Walmart. Nevertheless, once again, we're really getting off point here. I don't attempt to understand the female mind. It's frightening territory. Misogyny. Misogyny at its finest. This is a taught practice, y'all. This is taught, okay? This is not innate to the male species. This is taught by other men. The patriarchy. Be mindful. If I have to choose a musical theater man to put in my refrigerator, I'm gonna say Jeremy Jordan, because like I'm on my Newsy shit recently, y'all. I haven't watched it, but I'm on my Newsy shit, and I'm really just appreciating Jeremy Jordan. So I'm also hand-hearting for Jeremy Jordan. I also think it's really funny, like there's this delusion that like Troy, and listen, you can be anything you want to be, okay? You can be anything, okay? You can be a professional. You never know. But like, why are we acting like Troy is gonna be in the NBA? Did he say he wanted to be in the NBA? Like, what? I just don't understand. And is he, let's be honest, is Troy that good at basketball? I just want to know. Because they keep saying that, but I don't actually, I don't have the credentials to let you know if he is or not. So if someone who is actually knowledgeable in basketball wants to watch High School Musical movies and look at his b-ball skills and let me know, would love to know. Chad says, how can you expect the rest of us to be focused on a game if you're off somewhere in leotards singing Twinkletown? And he's doing jazz hands. If you're somewhere in leotards singing Twinkletown. The perception that they fucking have of musicals is fucking insane. Also, God forbid Troy wears a leotard. No one said anything about leotards. Not yet, my friend, but just you wait. We need you, Captain. Big time. Oh boy. Because the worst thing a man could be is a woman. God forbid Troy wears a leotard and does the Judas Lady Gaga dance. Personally, I'd like to see that. Okay? Chad, get it together. Get your head in the game, actually, because you're the one at fault here, not Troy. Why is the team allegedly incompetent without Troy, though? That's also something, like I already noted. Is he really all that great at basketball, or can everyone actually do their fucking part as well? Chad goes to talk to Taylor, and they are making a plan to keep Troy and Gabriella apart. Now, what they are about to do is actually so fucking mean. At the time, Chad and Taylor are chatting. Sharpay and Ryan are going, they have the entire student body. They're scheming. They're trying to do something against us, right? They think Taylor and Chad are on Troy and Gabriella's side. Little do they know, they're actually making a plan that would help Sharpay. But they're so delusional, they're just like, someone is coming for our spot in the theater, we cannot let this happen. So we have two intersecting scenes, right? Chad and the rest of the Wildcats are confronting Troy in the locker room, and Taylor and the rest of the decathlon are confronting Gabriella in the classroom. And laid out, we have all of the Wildcats talking about all the former Wildcat legends. Legends one and all. But do you think that any of these Wildcat legends became legends by getting involved in musical auditions just days before their league championships? After everything that someone is saying, they're screaming, "Get your head in the game!" No. These Wildcat legends became legends because they never took their eye off the prize. Now, who was the first sophomore to ever make varsity? Troy. Who voted him our team captain this year? Us. And who was going to get their sorry bus kicked in Friday's championship game if Troy's worried about an audition? We are. Once again, why are y'all incompetent? I thought we knew how to play basketball. Right? Like, even in a world where Troy is the leader, he's the playmaker, right? So they're saying, like, we should do this, do this. Don't be afraid to shoot the outside J, okay? Get your head in the game. There are a lot of things you shouldn't be afraid of, right? And one of those is shooting the outside J. Troy says, guys, come on, there's 12 people on this team, not just me. As I've been saying, Troy may be telling everyone, here's a good play we can move based on who we're playing. But like, at the end of the day, you still have your own authority in the way you play the game. Chad says, just 12? Oh no. I think you're missing a very important 13th member of our squad. Chad hands a picture of Troy's dad on it. Honey, you're like 50 fucking years old. We don't need to include Bolton. Coach Bolton has had his time, okay? You're focused on being a Wildcat legend of your time. You graduated high school like 35 fucking years ago. Get over it. Move on. Move on. Who cares? But this was low. This was low, right? We're using his dad to try to manipulate Troy. Wildcats basketball champion, class of 1981. Someone do the math on that. I'm not going to. Champion, father, and now coach. It's a winning tradition like no other. This was so low. This was so low. Once again, get a life. Get a life. You're a fucking basketball coach trying to relive your glory days of playing basketball at a high school. Okay? You weren't even on like a good college team. You know? I'm saying, like, I'm not saying you can't look back fondly on that. I'm just saying, like, really? And this is one of those things where we need to like, Dad, that was your dream, not mine. Now we are cutting to Gabriella in the classroom, and Taylor is starting this presentation with talking about how women are so smart and we don't ever want to stoop as low as these jocks, right? They can't even touch us. We are on another level. We are elevated IQ temptress in many ways. From lowly Neanderthals to Cro-Magnon to early warriors and medieval knights, all leading up to lunkhead basketball man. Yes, our culture worshipped the aggressor throughout the ages, and we end up with spoiled, overpaid, bonehead athletes who contribute little to civilization other than getting slam dunks and touchdowns. This is the inevitable world of Troy Bolton. They also printed a big-ass poster of Troy Bolton's head photoshopped onto a man making a slam dunk. And I just want to know, is East High bougie? Can they provide that for free? Or how much did they pay for this print? Because I feel like that print now, $25. $25. Glossy print, $25 easy. So I'm just saying. I want to know. That's not important, but I'm just wondering. So we're saying, like, these men are stupid. These men are stupid, okay? Gabriella's like, what the fuck is going on? But the path of the mind, the path we're on, ours is the path that has brought us to these people. Eleanor Roosevelt, Frida Kahlo, Sandra Day O'Connor, Madame Curie, Jane Goodall, Oprah Winfrey, and so many others who the world reveres. Gabriella's like, I've got a rehearsal with Kelsey. Like, can I get out of here? Like, what the hell are you even fucking talking about, girls? Troy Bolton represents one side of evolution, and our side, the side of education and accomplishment, is the future of civilization. This is the side where you belong. Now we are really going to get to the nitty gritty. We're cutting to where Chad and the team make Troy conform to the status quo. I'll tell you what I thought. I thought that you're my friends. Win together, lose together, teammates. The girl, the singing. Man, I'm for the team. I've always been for the team. She's just someone I met. Now I want everyone to know that Taylor is live streaming what Troy is saying. Live streaming, okay? They're live streaming for all to see because Taylor knew Chad was going to be able to kind of push Troy into saying some shit that was going to manipulate these choices, okay? The singing thing is nothing. Just a way to keep my nerves down. It means nothing to me. You're my guys and this is our team. Gabriella is not important. I'll forget about her. I'll forget about the audition and we'll go out and get the championship. Everybody happy now? This is where men bully other men to conform. Men bully other men to conform. Right? Because when Troy says everybody happy now, like, damn, if I'm being bullied, if it's this much of a fucking problem, you know what? Fucking have it your way. Have it your way. I'm not fucking dealing with this anymore. I'll just do what you want me to. I'll conform. Fine. Simultaneously, we're showing this to Gabriella. Gabriella just heard someone she cares about say, you know what? She never meant anything to me. None of this meant anything to me. Never mind. I'm not going to do it anymore, right? This is so fucking cruel. So fucking cruel. And don't get me wrong, Troy also has responsibility in that, and we'll get to that as well. And Taylor says, we'd love to have you for lunch. Now, you just broke Gabriella's heart by doing all this, okay? And you're just casually asking her to lunch. This is what I've said. Like, we don't talk about how cruel this was, both on Troy's part and Gabriella's part. And especially Gabriella's, right? Like, and they just casually try to act like things are cool. This is fucking insane. Troy, it's the thing of patriarchy, right? We bully other people to fall in line with the status quo, right? And it takes courage, right? When you have 1,000,001 people screaming at you to stick to the status quo, to, just have the courage to say, no, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm gonna do. And, it's unfortunate because people do get bullied back into the status quo. Like I said, it takes courage. Courage that Troy, unfortunately at this point is lacking without Gabriella by his side, right? Like, they have the courage to sing together, and that's so beautiful. But Troy really, he let down himself in this moment. And not just himself, but also Gabriella, right? Like, he still is responsible for what he says, which is something Gabriella says. He didn't stick to his guns, right? He was being bullied by his teammates. And listen, it's all understandable how we got here, right? But he does also have some responsibility, right? But like I said, it takes courage to stand up to 1,000,001 people who are screaming at you to do something different. So their friends start to realize that they were jerks. We don't really see how that realization happens, but I'm assuming just a general, discontent that they can see that their friends are in. The boys go up to meet Chad and they say, we've had a team meeting and we haven't been acting like a team. I mean us, not you. We just want you to know that we're going to be there, okay? We're cheering for you. If singing is something you want to do, we should be boosting you up, not tearing you down. Win or lose, we're teammates. That's what we're about. Even if you turn out to be the worst singer in the world. Which, we don't know because we haven't actually heard you sing yet. But this just goes to show, listen, if you make mistakes, you gotta make them fucking right, okay? You should be able to have those conversations and make apologies, right? Take accountability for your part. Troy says, and you're not gonna hear me sing, guys, because Gabriella won't even talk to me, and I don't know why. Troy, at this point, doesn't know what, that she has heard all that he said. You can't just, pretend you didn't see it. It may have been behind closed doors and he doesn't know, right? But, Gabriella knew he wasn't sticking to his guns, and he actually did something really hurtful to Gabriella as well. Conforming to patriarchy hurts everyone. It hurts you as an individual, and it also hurts other people who were really rooting for you and were able to see you have the courage. So we flash forward to Taylor talking to Gabriella and says, Gabriella, we were jerks. No, we were worse than jerks because we were mean jerks. We thought that Troy and the whole singing thing was killing our chances of having you on the decathlon team. We knew that Chad could get Troy to make him say things that would make you forget about the callbacks. We planned it and were embarrassed and sorry. This is where Gabriella says, you know what, you couldn't have forced him to say anything. And this is where we get the scene with Troy. So Troy shows up to Gabriella's house. She kind of gives the look to her mom do not let Troy in, don't want to talk to him. But he gives her a call on her cellular device. He also surprisingly made a climb from the grass to her balcony on the second floor. Actually, where was that scene? Because I want to see how he climbed up the tree. So Troy and Gabriella are chatting, and Gabriella said, you said so yourself. Everyone's treating you differently because of it. Troy says, maybe that's because I don't only want to be the basketball guy. They can't handle it. That's not my problem. It's theirs. But your dad? And it's not about my dad. This is about how I feel, and I'm not letting the team down. They let me down. And he sings the start of something new on her balcony, and they go, okay, sweet. So we move on to Sharpay, and she is telling Miss Darbus that she should move the callbacks to Friday. Coincidentally, the same time that the decathlon and the big championship game are. She wants to keep them out of the callback auditions. Because if they can't be there, they can't pose a threat. Because one of the things you need to know in the times that Sharpay and Ryan have walked by them rehearsing is that they can sing. Kelsey says, Miss Darbus may think she's protecting the show, but Ryan and Sharpay are only concerned with protecting themselves. What they really wanted to test here, we bring up loyalty again. What does loyalty mean to everyone? They have to pick and choose. They can't be both. They have to choose either or. You either have to be loyal to basketball or you can be loyal to the theater. If I can prove you're not loyal to the theater, I think you don't deserve a spot. Where Sharpay thinks she deserves a spot and she's had the spot. But like I said, once again, if you play fair and square, then you're fine. But you don't want to play fair and square. You want the part, no matter what it costs. So everyone makes a plan to work together. We're all in this together. They are going to make sure that they get Troy and Gabriella to their callbacks. Taylor is going to clickety-clack and do her little hacking moment to make the scoreboard wig out so that the gymnasium would have to be evacuated. Simultaneously, they are putting together some chemistry solutions to make the beaker explode in some capacity and get people out of the decathlon to once again evacuate to the auditorium where the callbacks are being heard. I would like to do a quick note that Sharpay and Ryan are doing bop to the top. Interesting. Anything it takes to climb the ladder of success. Because we're going to bop, bop, bop. Where are we bopping to? Oh, straight to the fucking top. Anything it takes to climb the ladder of success. Who do we think that applies to? Nevertheless, Troy and Gabriella get to their callback and they sing Breakin' Free. A little cute moment where Gabriella was nervous and Troy says, like kindergarten. Beautiful. And once again, if we're trying, we're breaking free. If we're trying something new, we're breaking free. Breaking free of the status quo. What we can note from this is the only people who benefit from the status quo are those who benefit from the inequality. Sharpay was benefiting from the status quo because it meant no one ever challenged her spot. So to wrap up this episode, let's take a look. How does this relate to patriarchy and white supremacy? We are going to ask the first question. How do people in power stay in power? They're going to make you feel like the role can never be attainable to you. Sharpay and Ryan have been doing it since the beginning of time. They're to the point where no one even bothers to audition anymore. We see this when Sharpay is the only one to sign the audition sheet. And if you're going to sign up for the musical, we assume that you won't be trying for my lead. You're going to take a small part. Number 2, they will try to discredit you. We see this when Sharpay makes a scene to Miss Darbus, trying to say they're doing it as a joke. And she tries to manipulate Miss Darbus, right? Discrediting Troy and Gabriella. She doesn't want them to be taken seriously because they threaten her spot when she wants to be the only one to be able to have that chance. And 3, if that doesn't work, they're going to make a plan to sabotage you. We see this when, once again, Sharpay convinces Miss Darbus to change the date of the callbacks to when the big game and the decathlon are. We see this power being abused. I'm sure people feel a certain way when you mention Sharpay Evans and white supremacy in the same sentence, but in order to really understand on a base level how these things have persisted throughout time, we have to see what that looks like. And this is what that looks like. And I think part of the reason that, me pointing out how this is really just a great example of how white supremacy works, right, is because we feel like we have a right to comfort, right? We don't want to feel uncomfortable. As I probably mentioned earlier with the status quo, right? Chad felt uncomfortable, right? That Troy was branching out of what the status quo was, what that meant for him personally, and also like what it means to be a quote unquote man. So if we don't break free of that, we don't question out these social constructs. What does that look like? And the right to comfort ties into Sharpay in the realm of she's always been comfortable and things have, I know people feel like Sharpay, oh, she's been working at this for so long, right? But it's that expectation of white supremacy, that expectation, that right to comfort, that if I feel as though I have done this, that I deserve this, which her spot in the theater is not deserved. And I don't say that in a way that she hasn't been working to curate what she feels her craft is, but it's that no one should be able to go up against her is that part that's the problem. It makes sense that, if you're feeling like I have worked so hard and I want to be at the top, whatever that means to you, or you want to feel like you have some success, right? And maybe Sharpay feels as though if she is the lead always, she feels successful, right? And how does that challenge her view of success, right? If she's not the lead. But the reality is we have to live in the nuance of there are just as many people who are good at things that we are good at, right? And that doesn't mean that one of us need to reign supreme over one another. We can support each other. Like, don't step on my gown. You need to calm down. Like, we can all shine together. We're all in this together. But also, like, life is taking turns. You don't always get to be the center of attention. And these problems don't always need to center you. It's not just about how Sharpay needs to be at the top for whatever reason, right? And we've kind of gone over some of those reasons, but I'll just leave that up to your interpretation. It's not just about her. It's about the greater picture that you're allowed to try something new. you're allowed to also get on that stage and try that new thing that you're enjoying, right? It doesn't need to be serious. And even if it is, that's okay too. Like, it doesn't matter. That's not the fucking point. The point is that you're doing something new. You're breaking free of the status quo. And anyone who wants to tell you that you can't do that is the problem. And they have to deal with how that makes them feel. But if they don't want to deal with their discomfort around not being the lead, yeah, that makes sense how she would act out. And that's why it's important work to do, to look inward and be like, okay, what is that making me feel? And do I need to, like Sharpay, like Chad, right, push people back into that mold? And that next leads us to what I'm going to be talking about is our part in breaking the status quo. The first, acknowledging the harmful beliefs that we need to deconstruct that are keeping us where we are. And that's in many ways, right? In the way that we affect other people and that we affect ourselves. As we've seen in the long run, like, that wasn't serving Chad, right? Like, this was an opportunity for him to grow as a person. And from here we have a quote from Hood Feminism I wanted to read because I just really feel like it encapsulated this whole point. But we are all human, all flawed in our own ways, and perhaps, most important, none of us are immune to the environment that surrounds us. We are a part of the society that we are fighting to change, and we cannot absolve ourselves of our role in it. The thing about this is that this is the forever work, right? It's kind of like a garden. You have to tend to that garden, right? It's not that the weeds will never grow. There's not a magical formula to spray on your garden to make sure the weeds don't grow. They will. But what are you going to do? Are you going to weed them out? Are you going to leave them? And sometimes we have periods of our lives where not that many things come up, and sometimes we have times where a lot of things come up. But what are you going to do about that? That's what really shows. What are you going to do in a time where we see these things coming up for ourselves? And how can we build that rapport and that safety within ourselves to be able to challenge that discomfort, right? Like, why do I feel uncomfortable with that? Can I sit with that discomfort? And how can we come out of this for the better? A lot of times we want to push things away that make us feel uncomfortable, but truly the only way to get through things is to feel uncomfortable. We want that kind of satisfaction, to not sit in the discomfort, right? That instant gratification of, okay, I'm over it now. But that's not the truth, and that's not life. And it doesn't matter whether we're 10, whether we're 80, these things will always come up because we exist in this society, right? These things have been engraved into us since we were born. It would be silly of us to think that we are magically going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. I gotta work it again and again just to make it right. Okay, Miss Hannah Montana has said this, has been saying this. You need to get away from that. If I make a mistake, right, and whatever that looks like to you, even if you fall back a little bit, you can gain that growth back. We can be like, oh shit, you know what? I didn't like that. And now that I'm reflecting on that, I'm seeing how this means X, Y, and Z, right? And then you do better. And that's it. It's not this big thing that you need to sit on in a guilt and shame pile, right? The point of those things existing, right, is not for you to wallow in it. It's for you to be, okay, how can I do better? And that's in how we show up for ourselves and how we show up for other people. And that's what that looks like. The next thing, we try. If we are trying, we're breaking free. Okay, it's in the text. It's in the original text, and you need to be listening. And most importantly, you're allowed to try. At any point in your life, you can try something new. Like Troy. Okay, what a better time. He was in high school. So, I mean, if there's any time that you should be able to try is in high school, but you can try at any point in your life. There are plenty of people who have maybe took them till they were 40 to be like, oh, wait, I kind of have always really wanted to do this, but I never did it before, right? You're allowed to do it. Right? And just because someone else is out there who is more knowledgeable and maybe more talented than you at the time doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it. And also the beauty in trying, right, is that when we try, we also can give courage to other people, or getting the support from others, right? If we stick together, gives us the courage to try. Like we saw with Troy and Gabriella, like they were able to try together, like kindergarten. I love that. That's one of my favorite little gems of High School Musical. And Zeke saying, you know what? If Troy can tell his secret, I can tell mine. I like to bake. They see, oh wait, I like Troy, I respect Troy. I'm so glad that he said that because that's going to give me the courage to speak out on what I like. And trying allows room for growth. There also is this kind of misconception of trying in the way that if I try something new and I'm unsuccessful at it, or I don't want to stick with it, then it doesn't feel good, right? Because we don't get the satisfaction at the end. And that is really, we have to challenge our need for productivity. And our need for productivity, to see that as productive if we're successful, if we stick with it. If we let go of that, it only gives us more agency, because it's not that I only have to try at things I think we will like. We try at things that we don't want to do, and then maybe we discover we like them, or we try something that we thought we were gonna like and we go, oh no, I don't like that, right? Doesn't mean you should stop trying just because these are all the different, ways that this can play out at the end of the day. But if we're trying, we're breaking free, okay? Anyone who discourages you from trying is probably just concerned with how it's threatening their place or the order of things. Try. Pick something new. It can be little, it can be big. And last but not least, we are all in this together. If we stand hand in hand, make our dreams come true. Are you listening? Wildcats, get your head in the fucking game. We're all in this together is such... It sounds so silly because it's so simple. It is just an incredible way to just say it, because there is a reason they want to divide us. If we only exist in our certain groups, right, and we don't go outside of that, we're never going to really understand how the world works and how it can work in a good way, right? That is only benefiting oppressive systems to keep us separated. Because throughout fucking history, we see in all the times that they try to separate different groups, right, who have come together. This has been in the past with the Native Americans and the white servants versus the black slaves, right? When we see that they have come together and realized this common goal, like what the issues that they both face, right? And they can come together to try to rise above it. We notice that this is where we need to separate the groups, right? Because they're so strong together that they can maybe overcome these oppressive systems. And the oppressors don't want that to happen. So that's why we need to create these differences. And High School Musical, everyone is special in their own way. We make each other strong. We're not the same, we're different in a good way. Together is where we belong, right? Our differences make us stronger. The point of life is to not have everything anyone could ever have, right? You're not going to have everything. The person next to you is not going to have everything. But together, we're all a piece of the puzzle. And at the same time, we have a lot of similarities. Yes, we may be into things that are very different, but we can bridge those gaps of differences, right? Troy did when he went to Kelsey and said, like, hey, I'm like the playmaker of basketball. You're the playmaker of the musical. We can bridge these gaps of differences, but also our differences that we do have do make us stronger when we work together. And we saw this when they came together to make sure that Troy and Gabriella got to their audition. There is a fucking reason why they want to keep you separated. Because when all these different groups work together towards a common goal, they can achieve it. And if that goal is going to hurt the oppressors, obviously the oppressors don't want that to happen. Hopefully that gave you some good insights, some good things to start thinking about. In High School Musical, like I said, so fucking incredible. Truly have a deeper appreciation for it. Already watched High School Musical 2, and oh my god, it only gets better. It only gets better. I'm never more hype about something than I am about this. I think we learned some valuable lessons today. I think we really took a look at the little intricacies of how these things play out in real life. This is one of the reasons I absolutely love looking back at things that I already like, because it's fun. B, it kind of gives you a challenge, right? I like to go in with a hypothesis and then kind of see how that plays out. And I was really just impressed with High School Musical altogether. Like, it was so fucking incredible. And no matter what part of the journey you're at, like, this is an incredible way to really challenge yourself into sitting with the discomfort of what that might mean for you if you still feel like you live in that discomfort of, acknowledging these things. Analyzing the things that you already love is so much fun because it just gives you a deeper appreciation, and you just kind of go, damn, it's all connected in everything that we watch. Like, you would be surprised at the movies that you could watch that you're like, that's just a silly movie, and you would find something about Shark Tale. Watch Shark Tale, okay? You're not thinking about the intricacies of Shark Tale, but there's stuff in there. There's stuff in Shark Tale. Believe it or not, there's stuff in Shark Tale. But High School Musical, what a fucking gem. So fucking incredible. Y'all need to get on it on your High School Musical rewatch, okay, and open your mind and expand your thoughts and challenge your discomfort. I don't love this right to comfort idea. I do think part of the reason people, I would imagine, one of the many reasons that there will be, have people challenging this idea, right? A patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism, but that doesn't come into effect for High School Musical until the second movie, right? How these things have been hurting us as a society. I think people feel uncomfortable and don't want to challenge it because it's a lot to fucking deal with your discomfort, right? This right to comfort that we feel that we should have. So it's easier for some people to blame it on other things instead of really acknowledging the real issue, because I think we lack the nuance, the ability to have nuance, and also accepting what our part looks like. And that's why I wanted to talk today about what our part looks like in challenging the status quo. And it doesn't have to be this big thing, like it's not that you are the only one to save this world, right? It is a team effort, and I think we can acknowledge that can be a little bit frustrating where not everybody wants to, be on the same team of that. We need to dismantle the patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism, and that bit can be frustrating, but it's really about what are the little things that you can start with, right? To build that comfort in the discomfort, to do in your day, right? And at the end of the day, these are all strategies that help us on a personal level, right? It's not just how we show up in the world, but also how we show up for ourselves. Like, there's a reason why they don't want you to think about these things, right? Because if you're smart, if you're thinking, if you have a true critical thinking skill, like, they can't get away with this, right? So challenge yourself in these ways, in these thoughts, in what you do, and how you can show up better for yourself in society. Like I said, it doesn't have to be this big number where you have to do all the saving. There are little things that you can do, and I like to say even catching it within yourself. I can give an example how I said that quote earlier, right? That like we are all flawed, we exist in a system that we are fighting to change, right? Like we all are going to have a misstep, right? Like you can think of like, if I was in a photo, right? And I'm not going to say suck it in, right? Out loud, I might think it, right? In deconstructing the fat phobia and the things that we've been talking, you're like, oh yeah, like why the fuck would I say that? I would never, like, I don't actually think that, but like, that's just the thing. Like when things are engraved into your brain, like sometimes it's so thoughtless. You don't even like think about the weight that it holds, right? And so the ability to be able to catch yourself in a moment like that is so important, right? Before we kind of spew it out into the world. And that's where you're going to have to own up to some things, if you do. But I like to say that moment because, we don't have a example of fat phobia in High School Musical that I know of, but I like to see like there are things that have been ingrained into our brain that are not healthy for us that, like I said, can be so thoughtless, and then you're like, oh shit, no, bitch, why the fuck would you say that? And you don't actually mean that. It's not coming up in necessarily malice, but it's impact over intent always, right? So what can we do to acknowledge those things in our head? And sometimes they happen in our head, and maybe sometimes they happen aloud, and you have to own up to what that looks like, right? Conflict resolution, taking accountability. At the end of the day, like, you were not put on this planet to stay stagnant. Like, you're meant to grow. You should grow until the day you die. And if you're not growing, oh honey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, that was a long ass spiel. All to say, we need to remember, we're all in this together, okay? The only people who benefit from the status quo are those who benefit from the inequality, okay? So do your part. Think about what that looks like for you. I think we gave some great examples here of how that played out for everyone in High School Musical, about what you can do in the real world and what that looks like, on an individual basis, what we can do. And that's really all I have to say. I love High School Musical and it's really fun. I think everyone should watch it and kind of give it a good think. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed a High School Musical analysis, and y'all need to get on it and do a fucking movie marathon.